Hello, and you're very welcome to the Town End Podcast. It's season 3, episode 11. Well, we've just been, I suppose, privileged to watch a 2-all entertaining game. And that's not even just the football elements of this one tonight in Oriel Park today. So it's been Dundalk 2, Derry 2 to go through this match. And this might take a while. Is Dundalk Democrats Niall Newberry. Niall, you're very welcome.
Have you, Chris? Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, I said it was an entertaining game now because there's plenty to talk about on and off with regards not just the football that was played, with refereeing decisions, pitch standards. There's a lot to go through here tonight. Now, I suppose we'll go back to the very start on this. Very early on, I suppose Skip has to remuddle his starting lineup with a pull-up from Andy Boyle in the warm-up. It looked to up to that point, it was going to be maybe a flat back 5 or 3 with two wingers in McCourt and Davis the other side. It's tough to even start from that part from, isn't it?
Yeah, obviously we got the team sheets at the start of the game, Chris, and I mean, obviously we were all kind of speculating on what kind of formation he was going to play. Stephen O'Donnell. Obviously we kind of ascertained that it was going to be Muller, Williams, Boyle. As part of a sort of back three, and then you have maybe Davies and McCourt as maybe wing backs. And obviously, Andy Boyle pulls up in the warm up with a calf injury, I believe, and you're kind of then second guessing again. What's he going to do? He still went with the back 5. He just more or less swapped Darragh Leahy in for Andy Boyle. Now Darragh Leahy wouldn't be a conventional centre half or a central defensive player. So he stuck with McCourt out left. So I was kind of hemming and hawing whether he was going to change or maybe drift McCourt back into the centre or play Leahy out wide. But he went, he stuck to his guns in that regard. The 5 at the back was probably the big talking point pre-match. He'd obviously changed the formation completely from the last 3 matches, which we lost. It's sort of, I don't want to say it worked for us. I mean, today was a lot better from Dundalk at times. I mean, the first half was still, reasonably poor from a Dundalk perspective. It was only kind of in the second half, a few incidents I felt nearly just got sort of galvanised Dundalk in the game. There's no getting away from the fact that, it took us, the bones of 40 minutes to have an attempt, and that was Archie Davis when through that volley, which had to be saved by Brian Maher. The second half, a few things happened. Stephen O'Donnell gets booked for his trouble. And in fairness, it seemed only from that point on, at around just past the hour mark, where Dundalk really started to sort of get any sort of foothold into the game. And obviously the 2 goals came shortly afterwards, within 50 seconds of each other. It was quite an amazing, you're nearly sort of questioning, do we deserve to be level here? And then suddenly in the blink of an eye, you're 2-1 ahead. So but then we kind of spoke off air beforehand, the equalizer from Keane Kavanagh. I mean, he obviously won the foul off Hayden Muller, and I think you said it yourself, Chris. Hayden Muller probably felt 35 yards out, there's probably not much danger, I might as well take one for the team here. But obviously Will Patchen floats the ball into the box, and as we kind of said, it was almost like slow motion. Keane Kavanagh sort of, the ball just loops into the net, and it was almost like everybody was just kind of standing still, as you said. And look, massive penalty appeal after that, of course. It looked to me like a stonewall penalty from first viewing. Robbie Benson looks like he's definitely pulled down by, I think it's Ronan Boyce. I'd have to double check on that. Yeah, looks like he's wrestled to the ground completely. But then obviously Wasiri Williams gets himself red carded. No real complaints there. I think it was Ollie O'Neill. Even Stephen O'Donnell afterwards in the press briefing didn't really have too much complaints on that one. It was probably a straight red. If we're being totally honest on that one, it was an awful late challenge from Wasiri Williams. And at the end, Michael Duffy has a chance. We're kind of nearly hanging on for the draw again. Then Michael Duffy has a chance, which just skims wide. So yeah, it was a game that had it all: injuries, crossbars, goals, defensive mistakes, slack play, good play. It was.
It's funny though. The majority of what you just talked about, you could probably limit to just the second half, really, which is the strange part in it, because the second half in particular just packed such a punch. You can only assume that, Skip obviously told him, sure, we're a goal behind in this, but you're not out of the game. And I suppose to go through the game, like very early on, we should have got a wake-up call, I suppose, when Diallo, after only 3 minutes, hits one off the crossbar from, I think it was from a corner kick, wasn't it, at the time?
It was.
And we looked at sixes and sevens again from a set piece. There's a bit of a similar theme this year, isn't there, in that sense?
Yeah. I felt that today, Chris. I mean, and it's been a feature of maybe the last few weeks even, and maybe perhaps the season in general. It's like set pieces, we're not clearing our lines as well as we should at times. You know what I mean? And like obviously the chance just reference there on 3 minutes, it's Ben Doherty who, put in quite a few set piece deliveries, particularly in the first half. Just didn't clear our lines. The ball comes out to Sado Diallo, crashes it off the crossbar. That's a great chance for Derry. You know what I mean? There's a couple of those throughout the first half. There was another one shortly afterwards where, he sort of puts a free kick in. I think Benson sort of slices it. And then I think Kieran Cole sort of skies it over. Like, I think Graydon might have had a header that he planted wide too. From another Doherty set piece. So that was kind of a feature in the first half. And it's been a feature in recent weeks in general, Chris. I mean, like today, that's why I said like today was definitely a big improvement, particularly on Cork on Monday night or Monday evening.
Yeah.
But that's not to say Dundalk were stellar today, barring, spits and spats where we kind of had some good play and obviously got the goals in one of those spells. There's still a lot of work to do for Stephen O'Donnell. And I don't think he's shying away from that, to be fair. I mean, like, it's going to be a long, hard season by the looks of it. It's not going to be plain sailing for any team, in fairness. I don't think any teams have sort of stood out. And that was another point he made. Like, there's no team after 10 matches that sort of laid a marker. Every team's kind of looked consistently inconsistent, if that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Dundalk are probably, another good example of that. So we're third from bottom at the moment, but 1 or 2 wins and suddenly you're back in the mix. So it's all to play for still, and we're still none the wiser on who's going to be where come November.
Look, and you could say that with regards to the table, but you could also say that with regards our team, because it seemed like, unfortunate for Skip, that a lot of his team selections is down to who is available at the time. And although we went for a quite narrow, I felt, middle of the park today with John Martin up front this time, Wardy, Benson, obviously, who I think had a great game today, and Greg Sloggett in there as well in that mix. To lose Greg then, who's probably been one of our better players this year, I'm presuming he said it in the huddle with you guys after, because I know he definitely said on LOI TV that, he said it's with that sort of a pitch. He said, if you come down anywhere but flat on your foot, there's no give in that pitch at all. So you'll end up doing yourself a mischief. And that looks like what's actually happened to Greg.
Yeah, it is. And sadly, that's just been another feature of not only this season, but, last season and possibly the season before as well. I said it on this podcast 2 weeks ago, like the current artificial surface is well past its sell-by date. And I know Jerry Malone was on the live show last week as well and, had sang a similar tune, about the pitch itself. I mean, it's like, to use Stephen O'Donnell's words, it's too far gone to the point where like it's no longer just an inconvenience. He more or less said it's actually hurting us as a team now. It's not good for the well-being of his playing staff. Like Greg Sloggett, and it was the first thing I thought. The ball kind of comes in. Greg Sloggett comes in to try and just win a standard header, not really challenged. Suddenly he's pulling up. He's gone down. His ankle. I think most of us would have saw him on the crutches with his leg bandaged, his left foot bandaged. Had to be stretchered off. There's no challenge. He's basically just rolled his ankle on it. And how many times have we heard about these kind of injuries? And then obviously before the game, Andy Boyle, a muscle injury or a calf injury, like in the warm up. It's just a feature week in, week out. It seems. Patrick Hoban's only kind of coming back now, and obviously made a big impact when he came on. But he's still not fully there. It's the squad's paper thin, and the injury list we're saying on this. We're saying week in, week out that it's the length of your arm, the injury list. You know what I mean? It's been the case for a couple of seasons now. And I mean, he more or less said, Stephen O'Donnell, that is, he referenced Derry City's injury crisis as well, with Mark Connolly obviously out. You know, Michael Duffy only kind of coming back. Patrick McElhenney wasn't in the matchday squad today. I mean, like, he's more or less said that, like, you know, Derry and Dundalk are the two teams in the League of Ireland who are getting the most injuries, and he more or less said we all kind of know what the correlation is, were Stephen O'Donnell's words, and that is obviously the artificial pitches, which, you know, Derry's is obviously quite badly cut up as well. You know, it's just, you know, more or less like it was, you know, the pitch would have been obviously the afternoon game as well, but the sun out, you know, doesn't make that pitch any better to play on. And I think Stephen was kind of surprised nearly that the game was as good as it was, because in his view, there were nearly impossible conditions to play with that pitch. Look,
despite the overnight rain, like, and it rained a lot last night, but you know, that's the thing with all weather pitches, that they don't hold the weather. You know, they don't hold any water like that. That's what they're built to do, is to disperse away any of the water. But unfortunately, it doesn't help the bounce of the pitch. Like, we've seen it there today. There was a couple of very strange bounces, and you know, headers from guys and it's kind of looping back behind them and stuff like that. They're very irregular bounce from it. I know Damien McGurk there was just asking, is the pitch watered? It is watered pre-match, but there's no water at half time that we used to get before. So, you know, you would say after 45 minutes of playing, you know, that level of football on it, it really needs to be watered again then after, you would say. And it's probably not suffice from, like you said, from a playing perspective on that surface now. It's got that much wear and tear on it that it's probably not fit for purpose anymore. No, and unfortunately, it just adds to another lengthy injury list for us. Yili Coco comes in for Greg on that, and unfortunately it's probably a little between himself and Robbie Benson. We give away possession for the first goal, and it's very hard as any player coming in anyway to get up to speed on that. But you know, it was unfortunate that it looked like the two boys went for the ball. Robbie wins it initially, and before Yili can actually get his foot onto the ball, it looks like it's kind of stolen off and scooped away, and suddenly we're on the back foot.
Yeah, he was unlucky, you know, he's just caught out. And like, this is the thing when you play good sides like Derry, you know what I mean? You can't really afford that sort of, you really have to sort of be on your game. And unfortunately for Yili Coco, you know, he's kind of just a bit too hesitant for my taste. Ben Doherty, I think it is, just nicks the ball, starts the move, nicks the ball off and plays it out to Graydon. Graydon sort of draws in McCourt, and McCourt and Yili Coco then sort of don't even know, like they're sort of hesitant to make a challenge. They're sort of standing off Graydon. Graydon then just plays it to back to Doherty. And the most disappointing element of that goal for me, Chris, was that, you know, Ben Doherty, he's in the box there. He's taking a touch in the box. Do you know what I mean? Before he's actually curved into the bottom corner. You know, I don't know why you'd be giving a player of that quality, who causes problems the whole afternoon, actually, Ben Doherty. You're giving a player that quality, that time. It's bad enough you've lost possession to him, but then he gets it back and he's able to take a touch. You know, I think Darragh Leahy maybe is a bit susceptible there. Close him down. And he's got all the time in the world just to curl into the bottom corner. And it was a really, really soft goal for us to give away at that point in the game. And that's, again, you know, soft goals have been the feature, I mean, like, of the season so far. I mean, like I said it 2 weeks ago after the Shamrock Rovers game. I know obviously Robbie Benson got sent off quite early in that match and we lost 4-0. But I did make the point that night that the 4 goals we shipped that night were not necessarily down to losing a player. It was all players losing the marker, getting caught in possession, getting, you know, these heavy loose passes. You can't legislate for that at any level of football. And against the good teams in the League of Ireland, you're certainly going to be punished, and that's what happened.
I felt for the first goal, I felt that we, you know, fair play to Graydon, because he sucked in maybe 3 players at one stage when he got the ball out wide of the box. And, you know, Ben Doherty clearly sees the space and doesn't get drawn to the ball, pulls back from it. So when he receives the ball, like I say, he can take a touch. He's got time now to look up, because the 3 defenders that's gone over to Graydon to block the cross initially, one of them is now out of position to close down Doherty when he is there. And like from my position up in the gantry, like the whole defense literally parts ways, and you could see where he's going to bend this straight away. Nothing I don't think Shepherd could have done, because he's obviously watching his near post in case he tries to bend it in that side. He has to wait for it to go around maybe 2 bodies. And at that stage, you're never going to cover over to your far post. It's a well-taken goal, but I just thought we got sucked into, one, we gave away possession too quickly. Then our positioning when we came back to we were kind of only thinking that Graydon was probably going to drop his shoulder and get to the byline and cut the ball back. Instead, he looks up and he sees Doherty in space and realizes he can offload it that way. And he's got time and space because Graydon has drawn 3 defenders over to him. Look, it's well taken. My only thoughts in the first half, and you've already mentioned Davis with your chance that we had on target. Bar those, there wasn't much quality, you would say, in that first half. You wouldn't be surprised that Skip did make the changes at halftime and brought in kind of more heavy hitters, to say one way.
Yeah, no, I wasn't surprised to see the changes quite early in the second half. I mean, Dundalk pretty much, barring Davis with that decent effort, there was absolutely nothing. And it was kind of similar in Cork on Monday. I think it took us 72 minutes to get any kind of shot, and that came from Ryan Tulloch. And that was the only real, I know he did another one shortly after that in Cork, but that was the only real. And that was kind of what I was worried about, looking at the first half. I'd even made a note. Luckily, in the second half, we were a lot better. But I'd actually made a note in the first half thinking, we're missing Pat Hoban, obviously. But, even if Pat Hoban was playing, and I thought this on Monday as well, and even in the game against Sligo, even if Pat Hoban's in that team, you're thinking, there's no service for him. We're not creating chances. And those are the worrying aspects of Dundalk's play at the moment, is that they're not really creating the chances. They certainly didn't create much in the first half, barring Davies. But in fairness, I think it has to be said, barring Diallo hitting the crossbar, Derry were kind of restricted to half chances as well. Do you know what I mean? In the first half in general didn't ooze quality on either end, I didn't think. And obviously Derry had the better of it. And obviously when they got the goal just before the break, they would have deserved it. It was a deserved. Yeah. It'd be hard to argue that Derry, on the balance of play at that stage, didn't deserve the goal. When Ben Doherty eventually put them ahead. But yeah, the substitutions, I thought Pat Hoban, even though he's probably not fully fit, when someone like Pat Hoban's leadership comes onto a pitch, you can sort of see how it galvanizes the rest of the team. Do you know what I mean? I think that was a big impact. Lee Coco, I know, barring the lapse for the first Derry goal, I thought played well. Do you know what I mean?
In particular, in the second half, it was much better.
Second half. Yeah, and then he got his goal, obviously, and thought he played well in spells. But for me, the man of the match today, was probably Robbie Benson. I mean, I think you've already alluded to that, Chris. I mean, that all-round display. Even had to take the captain's armband when Boyle pulled up in the warm-up. I mean, it's just all round. He was brilliant today and showed that real leadership. And Stephen O'Donnell said it himself. He's a player, and actually these are Stephen O'Donnell's words, by the way, so you can quote him on this. He said he's just a player with balls, and he said, for want of a better word, but he said not in a sort of, sort of in an undercurrent sort of way, and he just gets on with his business. But he's a serious personality and a serious footballer when he's at that level. And he was probably Dundalk's standout performer, I think, throughout the 90 minutes was Robbie Benson. And definitely my man in the match. I'm sure everybody will have different opinions on that, but I mean, he was certainly my man in the match today. And I think, but yeah, there was good displays. There was good displays. I thought Archie Davis was a lot better today. Do you know what I mean? He's come under a bit of criticism in recent weeks. Maybe he suits that wing back role a bit more than he does in a flat back four. I'm not sure, but he looked a lot better today than he had in the last 2 or 3 games where I've been quite critical of him. You know what I mean? He looked a lot better today. The midfield, Conor Malley didn't get as much joy as maybe he's got in other matches. Do you know what I mean? There wasn't, but maybe the conditions, the way it was set up, the game today didn't really allow for. Conor Malley's probably a luxury player in a game like that. Keith Ward, I thought, played well. Do you know what I mean? Put in a lot of good deliveries. John Martin was a bit isolated up top again before being replaced. Look, it was better. It wasn't vintage Dundalk by any stretch, Chris, but it was certainly a lot better than Cork on Monday evening. Although the bar was set very low in that game, but even against Sligo the previous Friday, I thought it was certainly an improvement on that against better caliber opposition too. So there's certainly positives to take from the performance today.
Yeah, you just reminded me when you did mention your man in the match there. We do have our man in match competition tonight. Oops. Housekeeping at the start of the game. I should have mentioned this at the very start of the show. But look, man and match competition. There's a lot coming in already for Robbie Benson, as you would expect on that. So just keep them coming in, and we will make our decision later in the show. I suppose then on 70th minute, we get another free kick. It's good having the likes of Wardy there, who's, we've been calling out to do something better. Although we have mentioned already our ineptitude when it comes to defending set pieces, but to have someone like Wardy there for set pieces gives us something. And you can normally ping the ball in the spot you're looking for. And it's a beaut that the keeper is probably can't come for anything because he's worried that there's going to be a flick on, so he's going to have to stay on the line. But then he also knows if someone gets a flick on here ahead of me, I'm probably very little chance I'm going to have anything to do with it. And that's exactly because, Robbie Benson rose like a bloody salmon out of that crowd of players. Yeah. He was so high to get a flick on. I think even on the commentary, Adrian Tapp wasn't too sure if it was Pat Hooban, because the way he jumped, you nearly swear it was, and Pat's so good in the air. But yeah, no, Robbie Benson, fantastic header, and not something he's always known for.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. I was thinking that myself. I thought it was Hooban myself at the time. I'm thinking like, surely that's not Robbie Benson with a header of that magnitude. Like, inside the box, it's more of a striker's finish, and that's what Stephen O'Donnell alluded to. Robbie Benson, he's just a player for all occasions. You know what I mean? He's a big game player, and he's a big goal player. He doesn't score, the fourth or fifth goal in the game, and that's him. He scores important goals. He does that for Dundalk, and he's done that down the years for Dundalk. And he usually scored quite a lot of spectacular goals as well. Like today, probably wouldn't be class a spectacular goal, but it was certainly, Keith Ward. Just going back to Keith Ward, as you mentioned there, Chris. I mean, like, that's the benefit of having someone like Keith Ward. Like Keith Ward will typically, just the way he plays, he's another luxury player, a bit like Mali, probably considered a luxury player. Will go missing in spells and games, but when you have a player of that quality and that that technique, and it was actually not too long before that he put in another similar set piece. I think it was actually Ronan Boyce, sort of like a backward header nearly into his own net, and luckily for him, Brian Maher was quite alert to it, and he would have been quite relieved at that point, Ronan Boyce. But shortly afterwards, we got a free kick almost in the exact same position, and Ward puts it in again, and Benson, like you said, rises like a salmon. Not a conventional Robbie Benson goal, but one will take nonetheless. And it really, Oriel Park was sort of galvanized by that, and you could see the shift in the game then at that point. And I think it was 50 seconds straight from the kickoff. Actually,
have you ever seen anything? I've never seen a goal like that before. No, in particular from Dundalk, but just in general, any commentator or any football manager would always say that once the goal is scored, the next 20 seconds, 30 seconds after are so important because people's heads are gone because there's been such a break in play. But, the self-destruct button was firmly bashed upon, you could say, by Derry, because to concede that goal in a game that they were relatively in control of, to get an equaliser, and then, to lose possession straight from a kickoff, and Yili Coco had the freedom of Oriel Park to run directly at the goal and
it was
put it through the legs then of Brian Maher.
Yeah, it was quite an unusual goal, to say the least, Chris. To say like you're actually most vulnerable when you've just scored a goal. So you're nearly thinking, like, as a Dundalk fan, that's the way the game was going when Benson equalised. You're nearly thinking instantly, listen, let's keep it tight now. Let's not concede straight away and find ourselves back behind. But it was actually quite the opposite, which rarely happens in football. It was quite the opposite. And, like, the kick-off, it's straight back out to Diallo, a bit like Yili Coco in the first half, just very hesitant. But Yili Coco just is racing through. He's like a man possessed. Nicks it off Diallo, momentum takes him forward. Suddenly he's bursting through on goal. And like you said, Chris, slots it underneath Brian Maher. And the atmosphere at Oriel Park at that point was just brilliant. I just took a look around the whole ground at that stage and it was just jumping. It was quite an amazing 50-second period from us being so frustrated, looking like another bad day at the office, another, we're going to come on here and give out stink again. But
I love not having to.
Yeah, same. Contrary to popular belief, so do I, Chris. Do you know what I mean? To be fair, like, so I want to be positive all the time, but like, you can't be positive on certain nights and on certain weeks. But tonight there was lots more positives. Yili Coco, I thought, took his goal brilliantly. He still had to show tremendous composure, but the momentum, and our tails were up at that stage, and it was quite an amazing. It was a great atmosphere at Oriel Park at that point, and the place was jumping and hopping. And actually, Ray and Tulloch actually dragged one wide not too long after that, so it could have even been 3-1. Do you know what I mean? Our tails were just completely up at that stage.
Special note though to Pat Hooban for our second goal as well, because straight from the kickoff, he races after the defender to put them under pressure, and then he has to quickly move the ball off to Diallo because he sees Pat Hoban coming. That's what Pat gives you, though, isn't it? Like it's that sort of thing that, for all the, and John Martin is a very good player, but he's just not a Pat Hoban, and that's what Pat Hoban gives you. He's racing, he's hurrying defenders. I seen him pointing and just telling people where to be, and he just commands that. And you could see even from the Derry defenders, especially when you seen him coming on, you could see they were kind of shuffling, right? Who's picking him up? He comes with the reputation and everything, and rightly so. And I just think that was part of it there today. Him hushing Harry and like straight from the kickoff to be booting it down to get that defender to make that pass go quicker than it should have. Diallo has no time to look behind him to see where Yili Koko is. The pocket's firmly picked, and off he goes. I think, and I'm glad Yili Koko didn't, because when Pat's running beside him, he may have been offside if he had have chosen to give him the ball. But I think when you've gone that far, you stole it and you're running down on goal, I wouldn't have passed it either. But it was just good to see. And that's what you get from Pat, isn't it?
Absolutely. Like, that's just vintage Patrick Hoban in a nutshell. I mean, like, and when you consider he wasn't even fully fit, he can't be fully fit at the moment, and that's still what he's given you. Do you know what I mean? Just that, I just thought his hold-up play, classic Pat Hoban attributes, his hold-up play was superb, and as you mentioned, the goal, if you're a defender for Derry, after conceding the goal, the last thing you want to see is Pat Hoban literally running towards you. Of course you're going to panic. You know what I mean? Of course, because, Pat Hoban to me, and I've said it time and time again when I've been put on, when he's brought me on here, he's a dying breed as far as centre-forwards go. Like, there's not many centre forwards like Pat Hoban around anymore, and they're gold dust when you get a player like that. I mean, he's not just a goal scorer. Like, it's everything. He's developed that into his game in the last few seasons. Just that leadership and that sort of, just like as I always say, just those ballsy performances. Like, you know what I mean, and those moments where you just look at it and say, and John Martin, in fairness to him, like, I will defend John Martin to a degree. Like, he's not a net striker, so I don't think it's a. A lot of people will compare it. I don't think it's quite a fair comparison. John Martin's obviously a lot more acclimatized to being sort of the wide right or wide left. Yeah, he's not in a centre forward. Obviously, circumstances have led to him playing centre forward in recent weeks, and he's not really suited by the looks of it in that position. But Pat Hoban, the sooner we get him back 100% fit, Dundalk does a different force when Patrick Hoban's on the pitch, and for those reasons you just mentioned, just that goal alone just shows you why we're a much better force and a much more, we're certainly more feared by opposition when Pat Hoban is leading the line like that. And we need him fit. We need him fit. But see, like, that goes back to the pitch though, Chris. The only concern now is when players do get back fit in Dundalk, they're pulling up again. Pat Hoban got injured last season a couple of times as well. Now, in fairness, the second one happened at Dalymount Park as a result of a poor challenge. But like, you want to keep players fit and healthy, and that's going to be our biggest challenge, you feel, especially when Europe comes knocking in the summer months. So that's going to be a big headache and a concern for Stephen O'Donnell, because you can't afford to lose players like Pat Hoban. You can't afford to lose players like Dan Kelly, Greg Sloggett, who's been brilliant in recent weeks. It's going to be out for, God knows how long now. So you can't afford to be losing those players. You really can't.
And just so everyone knows, we will eventually talk about the officiating on today's game. Just we'll try to get the football matters out of the way, because I think it's too important not to kind of talk about. Now we'll get on then to the equaliser. We've kind of touched on it already. About 35 yards out, we give away a free kick. Patching has come on the pitch at that stage. I think had Duffy had come on at that stage as well. Probably we were all getting the old army in against us. But it's a long angled ball high up into the box. It seems to be up there for an eternity, and then King Kavanagh, manages to rise up at the back post and bend it all the way over to the far post, up and over Nathan Shepherd. Probably nothing he could have done on that one either. It's an unfortunate one to give away, because we were probably playing the better football at the time. Once again, you said we probably have coughed it up in the sense that we gave away the free kick. It should be defendable. It's that far out. You'd like to think that Skip is probably doing those sort of drills during the week to, long high balls in against us. How do we defend this? It's unfortunate to get to give away that, to have the lead, and then to have to give it away like that is most disappointing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, Chris. I mean, like Stephen was asked that after the game. Obviously, his initial reaction was, obviously, I think a lot of us, in fairness, if we're being totally honest with ourselves, I think most of us before kickoff today probably would have taken a point or a draw, just given how we've been playing in recent weeks. Just stop the rot, basically, and stop the rot of losing games, if nothing else. But the nature, like when you go ahead in those circumstances and you actually are looking the more likely to add to your lead nearly, if anything, to then, cough up a goal like that. Again, it's just been a feature of Dundalk this year. And, this time last year, our defence was so resolute when we'd Mark Connolly sort of in the back four, and, our home record was superb. We were just looking so solid at that stage this time last year. I mean, we're coughing up stupid goals, and that is a stupid goal to give away. I mean, like, it's a nothing, like, patching's obviously a creative outlet, but the balls come in, and like it's almost like, as we've already kind of alluded to, like it's slow motion stuff. Like Cavan has got all the time in the world to get his head on that, and I mean, like, it's almost like, now I don't know if Shepherd saw it late. It's hard when the ball goes up in the air like that, and I don't know if Shepherd's at fault for that now. But I mean, like, it's hard to kind of judge where the ball's going to go if you're the goalkeeper at that stage. I mean, like, it's just such a soft goal. I mean, you could feel the disappointment in the main stand where I was just on it. It's just like, cripes, you're thinking, like, we're after getting ourselves in a position here that we probably didn't dream of being in today, and we just coughed up another silly goal, and we're conceding goals like that. How many times have we said that, this season? Goals nearly in slow motion, lapses, concentration, losing markers. That happened a few times today again, and I mean, those are things that just need to be ironed out in the training ground. Because Shelburne next Friday in Talca, I watched Shelburne on Friday night against Shamrock Rovers. That's going to be a seriously tough game. They're a seriously tough side to break down and beat. So we're going to have to be at our best, and we probably can't afford to be, it's going to be a packed Talca Park. The crowd's going to be behind them. Tight pitch. We can't afford to be slack and, have that sort of hesitancy that we've been showing in recent weeks. We just need to iron that out big time.
So we're pegged back to 2-2, and for my money anyway, a real important part in the game then is the penalty appeal. It looked to me live anyway. I thought penalty straight away. It looked like Robbie Benson had got in behind the defender, and the player seemed to kind of lose where he was and then fall onto Robbie Benson's, what I read from it, completely impeding the player. How that's not a penalty, I will never know then.
Yeah, I mean, like, to me now, and I've had the benefit of seeing it back as well, like, and my initial thought was it was a penalty. Watching it back on the TV monitor, my thoughts are it's a Stonewall penalty, to be honest. I mean, like, Benson's got no reason to go down in that scenario, really. Like, he's
past the defender.
Yeah, I mean,
the next thing will be either stopping the ball, looking up, or keep running towards goal. So
it's quite Stonewall, because Boyce has just he's wrestled him to the ground, actually. If we're actually looking at it, he's actually wrestled him to the ground. And the reaction from Stephen O'Donnell, Robbie Benson himself, Patrick Hoban, you see the reaction from the Dundalk players tells you everything you need to know on the Dundalk bench. I thought Stephen O'Donnell was going to get sent off at that stage, to be honest with you, because he'd already got himself a booking. The officiating, I know it's been in the comments, like, the officiating tonight, we're not going to be biased and say, but like, it was poor. I mean, like, Rob Hennessy, like, there was even a situation earlier in the game where I think Ryan Tulloch is literally like, is past, I think it could be Boyce again, actually. He's past the Derry fullback, and he's about to maybe put a ball into the box or have a shot himself. The Derry fullback just goes down and almost, and he sort of blows up and gives a free out to Derry when there didn't appear to be any sort of foul. And I actually think that was the basis of Stephen O'Donnell getting booked just past the hour mark. He got booked for his protestations on that, and he was probably fortunate not to get sent off for his protestations on the penalty appeal, because it was a Stonewall penalty. But sure, we've heard managers coming out week in, week out, talking about the officiating. Damien Duff with his copy and paste comment on Friday on the televised game. Like, it seems to be a feature this season. Red cards as well. Now with Siri Williams, it is a red card. It's
I think so. Yeah, I thought so too.
Yeah, and in fairness to Stephen O'Donnell, he's actually confirmed. He's admitted that himself. It was a stonewall red. That's something Rob Hennessy got right tonight. I mean, like, he's absolutely hacked Ollie O'Neill into, like, you know what I mean? To be honest, like, and he's probably a lucky boy he hasn't got injured, a serious injury out of that. So he got that one right, Rob Hennessy. But I mean, overall, I thought his decision making was, quite poor. And the Tulloch foul or alleged foul on Boyce, I think it is, and then the penalty appeal, stonewall penalty for me, Chris. I mean, I don't know how that's not. I don't know how you're not getting a penalty there, to be honest.
And then he books Ili Coco for his protestations after it as well, to really rub salt in the wounds. Like, you don't know how that card in particular might come back for suspension for that player later on. Like,
the referees, Chris, but look, I was reading stats about it. Like, the referees are waving cards like confetti this season. Like, you know what I mean? It seems every game, even the games I've watched on television or on LOI TV that don't involve Dundalk, just seems like there's yellow cards, red cards. Just I don't know what it is. It just seems to be a feature this season more so than previous seasons. It seems to be, it could be coincidence, but I mean, like, it just seems to be a real thing on the league at the minute. And I don't know if managers coming out and giving out is helping things. I don't know if there's like something. I don't know what I put it down to. I mean, like, but yeah, today the referee, I think anyway, had an afternoon to forget, to be honest.
You could nearly take off your Dundalk hat here as well today, and just say that the ref was so inconsistent, I felt, with a lot of things. He seemed to be reprimanding players more for dissent back if he made a decision. I remember, he had a long talk with Pat Houb, and Ili Coco got the card. Skip got a card as well on the bench for his protestations. So, like, that seemed to be more his officiating today, was to put everybody in line to agree with what he wanted everyone to agree with. But there was a large chunk, I'm nearly certain it was in the first half, that both Derry fans and Dundalk fans were frustrated. He hadn't, like, there was some wild tackles going on, inconsistency of free kicks, nothing was given. There was, so I'm not too sure, because sometimes it can be hard to tell, but some even of the linesman decisions today seemed questionable for what some were throw-ins and stuff. And it just added to this, it was a constant boiling point for a while till you get that ironic cheer from both sets of fans when they finally do get a decision for it. But to let certain things go, and then to miss the biggest thing that happened in the game was that penalty, and completely miss it and get it wrong. I mean, not that either manager is I don't feel anyway in danger of losing their job, because there's probably a bigger element to the project both managers are doing. But then that 3 points would have been massive for ourselves today, and for Skip, for something to build on for the Shells match. Absolutely. Also, that also brings in the worrying run of form then the Derry are on also. Like, they're probably going back up there going, okay, we were 2-1 down at one stage. We got back to a draw. This is something to build on. They've had a few defeats over the past while, similar to ourselves at home as well, where they'd be looking to do better. If that had a swung one way or the other, you never know where that could have an impact later in the season to that team who actually picked up the 3 points today. So to miss out on that decision, and all we're looking for is a fair refereeing, and if there's clear and obvious fouls, we got to have it in. Like, surely the referee's assistants have to have a say in what happened there. Surely, I know the linesman would have been over on the Shed side, but he's looking straight over. There wasn't that many players in the box who could have seen that foul. Surely he should have called over, maybe have a chat or something. But just to be so blatantly hand out a yellow card to a player for giving out about it, just rub salt in the wound for me. For it was a very obvious decision to everybody else in the ground. How four officiators couldn't just come together and say, "What do you think there? Should we not?" Just
on that point, Chris. I mean, like, and you mentioned the consistency. I think that's the biggest frustration or lack thereof. Like, but go back to Ili Coco's yellow card. I mean, like, it's not like he's screaming in Rob Hennessy's face. Like, he's about 10 yards away from him. So I mean, like, anything he said, I'm assuming is whatever. But I mean, unless, like, he's not like roaring in his face or up in the referee's face. Like, if that's the case, then yes, I would agree with the booking. I don't know why Ili Coco got booked. It just seems like O'Donnell made this comment after the Shamrock Rovers game when Robbie Benson got a red card. And I mean, he's sort of like saying there's referees just trying to making decisions that don't need to be made sometimes, is what he said. And I think the Yeli Coco yellow card is certainly one of those. Like, you don't need to book Yeli Coco now.
No.
And as you said, that penalty appeal, a season can hinge on something like that. You know what I mean? They can change a team season. They can, for the better or worse. I mean, like, you've got to be getting those things right. And like you said, he didn't even consult with his officiating team after it. It was, there we go. Look, the officials got booed coming into the stand at the end of the game. It was hard to argue with that. I mean, they had a bit of a mare throughout the day. I mean, it was just one bad decision, one inconsistent decision after another. I mean, like, I don't know. It seems to be a feature week in, week out. We're talking about referees and officials. And it's not just the Dundalk games. It seems to be all the league matches and all the managers are coming out talking.
And I do
about,
understand it's not
referees.
an easy job. I mean, it's not a job that I would like to do in particular. Like, you do come under a lot of scrutiny. But I know if I was doing that job, like I was doing any job, the more help and the more influence I can get from other people who might have a different view to mine, you got to take that on board. You can't be headstrong that you've seen everything perfectly well yourself and go with that as that is infinite. That is exactly what happened. I don't need to consult with anybody else here. That's it. We're going with that, and that's it. I see Eamon Collins just in the comments had just said something about the fourth official with Alan Patchwell. That was in your side tonight. I don't know, was there something happening there, or was that just more petulance from the officials tonight?
Actually, no. And Eamon's right. I did notice that Alan Patchwell seemed to be constantly in, let's just say, Stephen O'Donnell's personal space at times in the second half. So he was kind of he was getting very acquainted with Stephen O'Donnell, and he was sort of it seemed to be, and like the crowd were getting very frustrated at that. I mean, like, he was just sort of, and again, it's one of them things. It's just needless. It just comes down back to that old thing of like officials, referees, just trying to make mountains out of molehills. Do you know what I mean? And things like there's no need for Alan Patchell to be in O'Donnell's face as much as he was. Looking after him or whatever way he wants to put it, like, and making sure he's not out of line. Like, it's a football game. It's high octane. Managers are going to be given out. They're going to be frustrated. They've every right to be. Like, there's a lot riding on these games. You know what I mean? And like, Stephen O'Donnell, by the same extension, didn't do anything tonight that warranted a fourth official literally stand beside him at one stage in his own technical area, which was the case. So it's a good observation from Eamon, because I noticed that myself, and I was thinking myself, jeepers, like, there's no need for that, like, at all.
Yeah, I didn't know myself, because obviously it's the far side for myself, so it's hard to know what's there. I suppose this all comes back to then, like, what is the consequences here for Rob Hennessy? Probably absolutely none, which is the sad thing, and he'll have a game at the weekend again. We have to have a better system for this, because if a player steps out of line, like what Siri Williams did today, steps out of line, he's now going to get a suspension. He's unavailable for the club. Yet these players, or yet these referees and assistants, will all be available next weekend for officiating again. Like, we're only, I think, in order to improve the system, we probably need to look at, I don't necessarily agree with the likes of, I know the Premier League have a thing where they've got the Premier League referees, and if you fall below a certain standard, you end up doing like a championship level. I think that's unfair to the championship below. You're getting, a referee who had a poor game previously, and now you have to manage their level. That's hardly fair. But we should have some sort of consequences for officials actually missing these big moments, because now it's going to be in the back of their head. I need to get this right, because I either won't have a game at the weekend, or and it's only going to highlight it even more that I got something wrong, and therefore maybe they will seek further assistance and help from the other officials there with them. But there's literally doesn't seem like there's any consequences to any of these bad calls from the refs.
Yeah, but even like, accountability. I mean, like, if Stephen O'Donnell, loses a game, he has to come out and talk to, idiots like me, explaining what happened, or what he got wrong, or how he could have changed it, how he could have made it better. Do you know what I mean? And players likewise. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, Rob Hennessy might well come out today, and if the opportunity is given to him, or if it's a thing that we could implement and actually explain to people why he made that decision, or why he didn't make the decision, rather. I mean, like you see it in the German Bundesliga, or you did at least at one stage, where referees actually would come out and post-match and maybe explain certain decisions that they made, which I think is fair. I mean, a referee should also be given a fair right to reply as well, and maybe explain why they made that decision. But I mean, like, this whole thing of a decision like that being made and it being brushed under the carpet and us never hearing about it again, and then that same referee being out the next week refereeing another game, like, that's got to stop. Like, and we had this conversation after the Rovers game as well. I mean, like, I don't know. Like, it's. I just think accountability sometimes is all you need. Like, people make mistakes. Refereeing, as you mentioned, Chris, is a tough job. I wouldn't like to be doing it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I miss things in games sometimes, writing reports. I miss things. I get things wrong. We all get things wrong. Do you know what I mean? Like, nobody's perfect. Nobody's got a perfect vision. But I mean, like, maybe just sort of a better approach or a better response to some of these things is what you want. Because you don't want to see referees getting booed either. I mean, it's not
absolutely
to see anybody getting booed coming off the football ground. You know what I mean? Like, we all love the game, and we're all here for the betterment of the game. So, I mean, like, but the referees.
But I think that's the thing. We're all there for the football game now, yet we're all leaving talking about that penalty decision. And that's the sad thing about it all. That
it is.
You want to be talking about football matters only, whether you won or lost on the pitch, not if officiating has gone against you or you were on the wrong side of a very poor decision, which we were today. And that ends up being us going home with 1 point in the bag or 3 points. I said, and then how does that change our season then? You know, these all have a knock-on effect. And I think we're probably at times in the league, we're talking about standards and where we all are. And, you know, we've seen probably at this current time, more players leaving this league to go to England or elsewhere. And they're not squad numbers anymore. They're actually making an impact in first team football. So you would say perhaps the standard of the league is getting better. But with that, then our officiating also has to improve with that. Now, I know the FAI have new refereeing courses and stuff coming out only there in the last week or so. So perhaps that is, you know, a small pool of referees, and therefore, you know, if they were to stop one of these referees from officiating next weekend, have they got other cover for them? Perhaps not. I don't know. It's very, very rare we ever hear anything from the Referees Association or the FAI on this matter. But I did see that there was up and coming courses, 4 different courses, I believe, for refereeing by the FAI over the past week or something. So perhaps that's something about it.
Yeah, we do. We've got a small pool of referees in the League of Ireland. I think that's. I mean, like, that's probably that's obviously part of the problem. Who do you replace this referee, that referee, when there's, you know, 10 League of Ireland games across Premier and First Division? Every week, every Friday or Saturday. So I mean, like, it's like, maybe we do need more refs. Like, I don't know. I mean, like, it's look. You just can't.
We could talk about this every.
You can't legislate, but I mean, but as you said, Chris, it is a feature. I mean, like, the standard of the league has gotten better. Absolutely, standard of football, professionalism, strength and conditioning, all these things have improved. You know, you're now looking at athletes every week at the pitch. Do you know what I mean? Which is great, and the standards improved. Crowds are amazing across the league. For the first time in a very, very long time, I'd say you're getting sellout crowds across the league. You're getting fans are really buzzing about League of Ireland football now. But you're right. Like, the only thing that's kind of letting the league down at the minute is probably the state of some of the grounds and probably some of the officiating. Do you know what I mean? Which is just substandard at times, like it was today, this afternoon. So I mean, those are things we just need to get right. We need to iron those things out, because you know, people are leaving that ground today, and I don't want to be sitting here, and neither do you, Chris, talking about referees. Like, that's not really what.
No, absolutely not. No,
I hate it. I mean, it's not really, because you don't want a decision like that to be made in a game at either end, really. Do you know what I mean? It just spoils games. And we had this conversation after the Rovers game with Benson's red card as well, where even like Stephen Bradley, the Shamrock Rovers manager, had said it wasn't the red card. Like, these things are just inexcusable, really. Do you know what I mean? Like,
this is my point, though. So if you look at those 2 incidents, just because they've been so close, and both home games in Oriel Park, so the Robbie Benson one and the penalty today also involving Robbie Benson. Yeah. So if the referee just takes a beat on it and just thinks, you know, is there a doubt? should I consult with somebody? Like, I think that's all we're really, really looking for here.
Yeah.
Is something like that. Just don't make a rash decision too quickly. Take your time to evaluate what has actually happened here before us. Consult with others if need be. But my feeling on it is too many times the referee has just gone, Robbie Benson's come in there, his foot's very high, that's straight red.
Yeah.
Robbie Benson's gone down because the other fella fell down. Maybe the two of them just tangled and went down. Like maybes everywhere. Like that shouldn't be the job of a referee, because your job is to be in the middle and be as fair and impartial to both sides as you possibly can. And to do that, you have to ascertain and be 100% correct of what you're doing. Like you said, not everything's going to be right. You can't be right all the time. So therefore, seek further assistance and maybe take your time, because like if you were to write up a match report, but you were stuck for time and you were to lash together a match report, it probably wouldn't be as good as you could do it because you were stuck in a time constraint. But if you had a longer time, you would be much more happy with it because you got time to actually put the elements in place. Now, we're not looking for like a VAR length of time, minutes nearly sometimes after. But I'm just thinking, don't shut off to the idea that it's a penalty or that maybe that player shouldn't be sent off.
Do you know what I mean? Like just on that,
that's the small things, I think.
Yeah, like just consult. Like, I mean, like it's just going back to your, like, I mean, if I'm doing a match report of the game today, for example, and I miss something, I'll ask the reporter next to me who got that header or who made that pass, like, or who put that cross in. Do you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like, that's normal. I mean, there's but like a refereeing, like it's an officiating team you have there. You got 4 officials, you got lines. You know what I mean? It's. I mean, like he didn't even he was almost straight away just making that decision. And then booking Yili Coco for, who was 10 yards away from him. You know, I don't know, like, if he's in his face, as I already said, I can get it.
He was at least 15 yards away, 10 yards away. I would have thought.
He might have shouted something from 20, 15 yards. And I mean, he's booking him just to add more sort of madness to the whole situation. Like, and it doesn't help his position either in terms of the crowd getting on his back. Like, so those little things as well are just seemingly needless. Needless.
Frank had asked there if there would be some sort of VAR system. I think we struggle for internet in so many grounds. I think we probably need to get those things.
You might get out of the Ballybuffet, Frank. It'd be hard to get VAR, I'd say.
Yeah, that'd be the only
just because of the internet. You know what I mean? Yeah. But maybe in the future. I mean, like VAR is part of the game now. You know what I mean? At the high level, I suppose. And I mean, like, it is creeping into other leagues as well. I mean, like, I think maybe in the future it probably will eventually find its way into League of Ireland, like in some capacity.
I think it's probably one of the steps towards goal line technology and things like that first.
Yeah,
there are easier fixes.
But then, Chris, you look at the English Premier League, and I mean, like, the VAR exists there, and yet they're still talking points about decisions week in, week out, where they're looking at VAR and they're still getting things wrong. So, like,
but this is the thing. This is the thing I like though about goal line technology, because there's sensors in a ball that tells you it's either crossed the line or it hasn't. At least it's black or it's white, because when you go into VAR, then you're into interpretation. And, I think that's part of our issue with somebody officiating as it is it's their interpretation of what happened, but was it correct sometimes? That's our argument, I believe. Because I'm sure if you slow down enough Robbie Benson sending off the previous week, you could probably come with pros and cons to should he be sent off, should he not be sent off, things like that. And you could probably do the same with the penalty today. The referee could come out and find a way to defend that, because there's probably something in it, in the rule book that that we're unaware of, and that was the reasoning that he gave it. But if you come out and you clarify these things, like you mentioned earlier, Niall, that clears up all of this, and all this guesswork suddenly can stop.
Any doubts? Alleviate it.
Yeah. I just when I seen Andrea's point there as well, investing time, money, energy, everything into this with the FAI. I suppose the other part of that is, like I mentioned earlier on, that both managers aren't really under, I wouldn't have thought, like, their heads aren't on the chopping board for this, but one of these decisions as the season goes on will come down to something like that. And you'd worry that if a poor referee's decision will cost people jobs, and it's going to cost people, a poorly timed challenge and stuff like that as well, that does go unpunished, could be, we're talking about a range of minutes in the match today that the ref didn't seem to want to give any decisions. Once someone puts in, a 2-footer challenge on somebody because they think, well, I can get away with this today, the ref's not doing anything about it. And that ends a career of somebody as well. So like there's lots of levels to this as well.
There
it's
is.
important, and these are all the reasons why it's important to get to the next level of refereeing and really push it there. Like it's very rare, like we used to have so Alan Kelly used to be selected by UEFA and stuff like that. Am I right?
That's correct. Yeah. Correct.
Yeah. Do we currently have anyone selected on the UEFA?
I'm not too sure now, Chris, to be honest with you. Like, possibly, I don't believe
I've gone
so.
down a rabbit hole here of officiating, so apologies.
Yeah.
I could have dropped this on you tonight. I blame Eamon Collins because he had all these messages in.
But I will say one thing just on that. I mean, like, it is a case of, managers, like you look at the league table at the moment and it's so tight, and the gap between European football and fighting relegation is so marginal at the minute. And like,
good point. Yeah.
You do feel it's a season where a decision will define whether a team is going to be at one end or the other end nearly of a table. And look, it's all money. Like, I mean, like League of Ireland teams are now investing money into squads and, owners and all this type of stuff. They want to see European football at the end of that trail. And that's really where a lot of managers are under pressure at the minute. You know what I mean? Because it's getting into Europe, it's getting back into that, getting that pot again next season. And a decision like that, or a non-decision, if you like, could be the difference between a Dundalk finishing third or fourth or fifth. You know what I mean? It could be the difference at the end of the season. So where does that leave a Tim Clancy or a Rory Higgins or a Stephen O'Donnell? Like, where does that leave, or a Stephen Bradley? Where does that leave them at the end of the season? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's it is a rabbit hole we've gone down, but I do think it's a worthwhile talking point. I mean, like, it is, it's quite current in the league, and I mean, like, we're not the only ones saying it. Managers are coming in week in, week out, making these comments. So something's got to give. Something's got to give big time.
Definitely. Look, in order to wrap up the show here, I suppose we'll come to, you've kind of let the cat out of the bag here on your decision for man of the match. I presume it's Robbie Benson. If you want to just tell us why.
Just thought, Robbie Benson, he's hasn't played a lot of football. I think Stephen O'Donnell even alluded to that being maybe his first full game since July, perhaps. Like, just everything about it, leadership, balls, got the goal, obviously, just a typical keeping your head down, getting the job done type performance from Robbie Benson today, as we've come to know in recent years. And it was vintage Robbie Benson. For me, man the match, hands down. There was a few good performances. I saw Archie Davis. I was glad to see Archie Davis' name pop up there.
Yeah, Archie Davis got a shout there tonight as well. Yeah,
I thought he was a lot better. Pat Hubin was excellent when he came on. There was good. Keith Ward put in lots of good deliveries. On the night, or on the day, sorry. Greg
even Pat Hubin's got to mention just for his impact, surely, just on the game.
I think so. I think so. Yeah, he's definitely a contender, and even Keith Ward putting deliveries in, and even Greg Sloggett. I know, like, he got injured, but in recent weeks, Greg Sloggett deserves a mention, because I think although Dundalk have been poor in recent weeks, Greg Sloggett had been playing well and was actually quite good in Turner's Cross. Probably the only player in Turner's Cross stuck any credit out of the performance. But Robbie Benson for me, Chris. Just he was superb, and Stephen O'Donnell was full of talk about him after the game. It was all Robbie Benson this, Robbie Benson that. That kind of tells its own story. So Robbie Benson for me.
Yeah, and look, it's similar for myself as well. And I'm not going to lie to you, about 80% of the comments tonight were all Robbie Benson for it. What I liked also about Robbie Benson, there was a moment in the second half. Actually, it might have been on the lead up towards the penalty or the shot that Tulloch drilled just wide of the post, and that was when I think it was Derry had a throw in, or we had a throw in over on the Shed side, and the ball was kind of bouncing around, and the ball fell to Bob. And previously our midfielders probably just put their laces through the ball and clear it and get it. We actually got on the ball and he ran with it, and suddenly, you could see Pat Hubin was trying to pull away and pull a defender away and open up the pitch for him. I think that's just that engine that Robbie Benson gives.
That engine, and just that calmness as well, and just that sort of, not panicking. He's such a suave, sort of cool customer. He always has been. I mean, like, that's a real makeup of Robbie Benson's game. I mean, and he showed that in spades again today. I mean, it was like rolling back the years, if you like, hopefully we'll see a lot. Hopefully we'll see a lot more of that now with a fully fit Robbie Benson for the season. Fingers crossed, because unfortunately, the other big talking point today is our artificial pitch. So it's causing more problems than it's worth at the moment. So let's hope players can stay fit now, because that's going to make or break our season, Chris. Is if we can keep boys fit. I mean that's going to be the difference ultimately, and I think Stephen O'Donnell's starting to see that too. Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, if the injuries won't get us, the suspensions will. So just to close off our man of the match competition, I'm not going to lie to you, right? I was giving this to Eamon Collins just because he asked us to talk about the refereeing, and we went way down a rabbit hole and chatting about it for ages. And Eamon, I literally was going to give you this. Only Barry Kerr put in a message earlier to say that he wanted Robbie Benson, so agreeing with us. And then he's after tugging on the heartstrings there now and saying that it was the 6 and 4-year-olds' first game and they love pizza. So look, I think to make it a good day for the kids and all, I hope you don't mind, Eamon, but we will give our man of the match then to Barry Kerr and to the kids. Hopefully that's where it goes. Now, if I find that there's no kids, I'll be investigating that one myself. We don't like being tugged on heartstrings here for it. So congratulations, Barry. You are a winner of our 15-inch Tony's Pizzeria pizza. Nearly got that one all wrong. So congratulations to you, and thanks to everybody for entering as well. Look, I suppose as a matter of just a bit of housekeeping, you've mentioned it earlier on, Niall, as well. So just have a look at the table and where we currently stand on a lot of this. Point probably didn't give us the what we needed today was probably all 3 points. Actually, I'll go one stage further and say both teams really needed to win today, which was unfortunate when we're talking about the refereeing decision. And so we stay in 8th position on that, just a point behind Drogheda. Obviously with that game coming up very soon in Oriel Park as well, the Derby will be back up. So after this round of fixtures this weekend, both stay top on 21 points, and second is Pats on 17, which is amazing to think both Pats second and Shamrock Rovers in fourth, and all the talk before, with Tim Clancy and Stephen Bradley, can they hold on to their jobs? And you look in particular Shamrock Rovers, you would say, three wins, 2 draws, and Pats 4 wins in a row before that and a draw. So it just shows it's all about consistency in this league. If you can put a run of results together, you'll leapfrog everybody else, don't you?
Just looking at it, yeah, absolutely, Chris. Just looking at it there, 5 points separating Pats in second to Dundalk in 8 is just incredible. Like, it's, when every team's played each other once now and then some. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's no team really laying down a marker. Like, even Bows in top there have lost 2 of the last 3. Yeah. Like, Pat's obviously the form team, 4 in the bounce now. It was only like a few weeks ago it seemed that Clancy was on the brink of losing his job. Do you know what I mean? And according to some reports, like, you know what I mean? So Rovers, dropping points as well. Shells, Drogheda picking up points. Sligo being very inconsistent. Derry have been inconsistent. Obviously Dundalk have been inconsistent. Cork still within touch and distance of ourselves in 3 points, but then lost to UCD. Who put themselves back in sort of a bit of hope of staying up. Look, it's very hard to even call. We're still nowhere near, after 10 games, knowing any wiser of who's going to be thereabouts. I mean, like, it still feels like it's the first couple of weeks in the season, looking at that table. When normally after 10 games, the table's really taking shape, and we haven't really got there yet. It's just teams are just taking points off each other in this league. I watched Shamrock Rovers and Shells on Friday. I watched Drogheda and Sligo on Saturday. I mean, just games, like, draws, 3 draws basically I've watched this week. So that kind of sums up the first 10 weeks of the season. Just teams just getting points off each other.
I suppose this sets up next Friday now away to Shells. It sets that up nicely because you're knowing that a win can leapfrog you over them. Coming in tonight, we didn't know, because you're not directly taking points off each other. You're not going to leapfrog that team you're playing, but this is, you've potential to leapfrog over that team. So that's got to have motivation behind it. One question I will ask you then on that is, what has today taught Skip about this team that he puts out there? Obviously, you're looking to see if you can get 90 minutes out of Pat Hooban just for the difference he makes. But, we've got another suspension now. We've got another injury. We're talking about trying to get some sort of consistency in our back line and in the middle of the park. that's not going to happen again. So we're rolling into next few games that with still an inconsistent squad, starting 11 in particular. Anyway, you would say.
Yeah, I think it really depends. Like in terms of the back line, it really sort of depends on the consistency of, or sorry, not the consistency, the
availability, maybe.
Yeah, like the extent of Andy Boyle's injury. Like Stephen has said that it's not as serious as maybe we think. But I mean, like, but he said the reason Andy Boyle didn't play today was because he felt if he had played, it could have been potentially serious then. Do you know what I mean? So, look, if Andy Boyle's available for Friday against Shells, then great. But if not, you're kind of scratching your head as to where to say who's going to play in the back four with Raziri Williams now suspended, Louis Annesley not yet available. You know, we're kind of scraping at the barrel at the minute in terms of fielding a team. Look, I'd start Pat Hoban. If Pat Hoban's even 75% fit, I'd start him in Tulka Park on Friday. I think what he gives you, just as we said, look, we could do a whole podcast just on Pat Hoban tonight and Robbie Benson. But I mean, like, just
because I went on the officiating and the pitch though as well.
Yes, which we
it's
did.
A 4-part series.
Yeah. So I mean, like, yeah, I'd be starting Hoban, Benson next Friday.
You start with your strongest squad, is what you were thinking, and then see how the game pans out. And
yeah, because you got Sloggett. Like, Sloggett's going to be out for a few weeks as well now. So, like, you haven't really got that many options in terms of how you play in midfield. If we're being honest, he played with sort of like the midfield today was sort of an interesting one. He kind of played with that trio of Malley, Sloggett, and Benson at the start, and then Ward was kind of in like almost what looked like a free roll nearly in front of them. Do you know what I mean? Just kind of weaving around the place as he does. So, I mean, it'll be interesting to see if the formation changes or if he goes with the same formation he went today, or will he go back to a flat back four? It could be enforced, as you said, you know what I mean, depending on Andy Boyle's availability. So, look, I suppose time will tell, but what he would have learned, I suppose what he has learned is that he can maybe change the formation, and we do have a bit of expansiveness about us when we want to. So, like, today was a decent performance. It was certainly a lot better than what we saw in the last 3 weeks. So, I think those are probably the positives. If we're going to be glass half full about it, we should go into the Shelbourne game with a bit of confidence in terms of maybe getting 3 points, hopefully. But make no mistake, Tulka Park, Damien Duff's Shelbourne, very tough place to go at the minute. So it's going to be another battle, you'd imagine. Bit of edge as well after the game a few weeks back.
Exactly
with the mass brawl in the tunnel. So there's a bit of an edge to it too. So we'll see how that goes.
There could be a, although it didn't matter much, in the Leinster Senior Cup, but I'm sure Skip will want to put that result right as well.
Oh yeah, totally.
It's one up over for, and I know you could say it all went experimental with an early sending off, but that started a sequence of defeats and heavy defeats at time as well. So it's a chance to put that right. Look, I think you've ended on a note of optimism today as well. So I think it's the perfect way to do it. Thanks, Niall, for popping in tonight. Thanks, as always, to our sponsors, to Donald Green and to Dundalk Village for overall sponsorship of the podcast. We were able to extend on for one extra week our jersey, which sales are going extremely well as well. So it looks like we're on track to raise the funds of what we were hoping to do. But just if anyone is able to buy it, able to help us and give to Dundalk Village in Uganda, that'd be brilliant. It's a more than worthy cause for it as well. Also like to thanks Tony's Pizzeria for our Man of the Match competition pizza. And I see everything, they've all kissed and made up. Eamon's happy to give away the pizza, and there's definitely kids there from our winner as well. So that's all good as well. And brilliant. Thanks as always to Player Fit for our 2023 shirt for this year, and always being there for us for our merchandise as well. That seems to be it. So till Tulka Park, we'll go again. Hopefully we're not talking about officiating or poor injuries again. We're just talking about football. That's the dream anyway. It hasn't happened too many times this year. Thanks to everyone for all their comments as well. And we shall see you all next Friday. Thank you.